Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is...
Ride, the movie guy, and sitting inside the fish tank is Fill Me in Phil.
Hello.
Wow, an enthusiastic hello from
He's
Phil.
He's been busting those out lately.
He sure has. This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, the Prodigal Son returns and gives us his top 5 list of prodigal sons and daughters in movie history.
Are we all like the prodigal son, or are we just speaking of our guest who will be joining us soon?
I think just the guest is the prodigal son, even though that technically he's not, because this is his first appearance on Cinemajaw.
I don't mean to brag, but I live with my mother, so...
You're the prodigal son. Can I say, I really, in all honesty, we've heard that term bandied about so much, the prodigal son returns, blah, blah, blah. But I never actually looked up the official definition of prodigal son until I started doing the research for this episode.
Well, Matt, enlighten us with your new knowledge. What is the definition? What do you got?
I had no idea. It's actually a parable from the Bible, which tells you a little bit about my religious background. Not very pious over here. And I guess it was something that Jesus said in one of the books, I think it was Luke or something, about a son who goes away and spends all of his gold and potential and returns home kind of shamed, expecting to be shunned by his father, but then was actually accepted back into the fold. And there's some sibling rivalry in the story as well, but it's mostly about, the prodigal son returning is about somebody who's, still accepted back, even through estrangement, which is kind of how I took it.
I had to look it up myself. Full disclosure here, Jawheads, this was Matt Kay's idea, so I'm putting the blame on you if this isn't our strongest top 5. So I had to look it up, and I had to come up and be a little creative this week.
It ties into the film we're reviewing.
It does. We have a great guest who's going to be joining us shortly that's going to help us with this difficult top 5 list.
Yes, we do. Michael Glover Smith, filmmaker, author, teacher, director. He's got a new movie coming out, as well as one that is currently out, hitting the streams, doing well. Can't wait to talk to him.
Can't wait to talk to Michael. It's one of those guests. It's about time we had him on. We know a lot of the same people. He's in the same crowd. Prolific in the Chicago filmmaker community. And it's about time we had Michael on Cinemajaw.
Big agree.
Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Phil?
Yeah, we're keeping it rolling with week number 2 of Toni Collette month. So we got another fact and we'll have another clip.
And we have a review of Idris Elba's Concrete Cowboy, hence the Prodigal Son tie-in.
There it is. We've already done horses. We've already done cowboys.
Yeah.
There wasn't much to go from. Concrete movies, I don't know,
Yeah, I think we bandied about a few other potentials, but Prodigal Son was the one we landed on.
There you go. There's a new film coming out. I think we're going to actually talk about it next week on our Oscar special, not because it's an Oscar-worthy movie, but it just so happens to come out on Netflix, called Thunder Force. This stars Melissa McCarthy, Octavia Spencer, and Jason Bateman. So I thought this would be a good time, Matt, for you to take Michael on in Melissa McCarthy, Octavia Spencer, Jason Bateman movie trivia.
Oh my God.
And when I was looking at these actors and actresses, I was shocked at how they actually have something in common. They all started fairly early when we didn't know who they were in movies. And so what I did is, all I did for this trivia, instead of 8 questions, we're going to do 10 this week, is I'm going to give you a movie title and you just have to tell me which one of those 3 appears in that movie.
Okay.
And they're not the easiest of movie titles. We're going to have fun with it.
Okay. I'm not ready, but I'm ready.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Matt, before we get Michael on, serious question. Have you watched WandaVision?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
you have.
Yeah, totally.
Because we have not talked about this at all. And you're a Marvel fan.
Well, we stick to film mostly, right?
Yeah, true. But I thought you would have said something about it because obviously WandaVision is made basically for the Marvel fanboys.
No, I don't think that's true. I think WandaVision appeals to a broad audience, man. It was a big hit. It was good.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, people are watching it, but they're Marvel fans that are watching it. It's not
No. My mom watched it. I mean, everybody's watching it, even non-Marvel fans.
No, non-Marvel fans are staying away from
man.
this.
No,
I'm sure.
non-Marvel fans are watching this thing.
No chance.
You know what? CinemaWAR.
Wow. I don't know how Michael's going to judge this one, but we're going to have fun with it.
I think it's going to be pretty easy for Michael.
All right. We'll see. Hopefully he's not a Marvel fan. Maybe I got that in my corner going, Matt.
Maybe.
So it is a jam-packed job. Before we get to Michael, it is Toni Collette month. So let's start right there, Phil.
Yes. So week number 2, we're learning this week that Toni Collette turned down the lead role for Bridget Jones' Diary. Right after the success of Muriel's Wedding, Toni Collette continued to act in film, and also she was a stage actor, which I did not know. And while she was in the Broadway musical The Wild Party, which she did get a Tony nomination for.
Tony got a Tony?
She did. I didn't put that together. I doubt anybody made that joke during the ceremony. So she was performing in that play, and when they were approaching her to be Bridget Jones, she said, 1, I don't have the time commitment because I'm doing this musical, and then 2, she also didn't want to be typecast as that kind of archetypal character, which is interesting to me because I feel like many years later now, Toni Collette kind of is typecast as like tired mother.
That's interesting, I mean? But I also disagree.
A very loving and very...
You've got a point, but then you look at a character like the one she played in Knives Out, which is totally not tired mother. She was kind of like this hippie. She's a character actor. She does often play that
tired mother,
beleaguered mom. Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is
very interesting.
Bridget Jones would have been completely different. That's for sure.
Can't really knock her choices with the career that she's had, though.
I agree. Speaking of a career, Matt, we got a filmmaker joining us, Michael Glover Smith. His third film, entitled Mercury in Retrograde, is playing now on Music Box Direct. This is a new service from the Music Box, and he is about to start shooting his 4th feature-length film. Michael, welcome to Cinemajaw.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome to finally have you here. So Mercury in Retrograde actually stars a few of our former guests. Jack C. Newell's in it.
Yes. And Shane Simmons.
And Shane Simmons, yeah. And Claire as well, right?
Claire Cooney.
Claire was the casting director for Mercury in Retrograde. And she has a cameo in it. She's actually on the beach in the scene where they go to the lake.
So How did this seems like somewhat local production to Chicago. How did it all come together? What was the journey from start to finish like?
Well, Mercury was my second feature film as a writer-director, and I kind of wanted to explore the same material that I had explored in my first film, Cool Apocalypse, which is relationships. So I wanted to make a film that really kind of explored, the dynamics of different kinds of couples. And in my first film, the whole thing was shot in Chicago, and it examined how people navigate relationships in their day-to-day lives. They go to work, they come home, they have dinner, they, fall in love, they break up. And I didn't want to do the same thing. So I thought it might be interesting to examine relationships while people are on vacation. So the whole concept is you have 3 couples, and they're all from Chicago, but they go to a lakeside cabin in the woods of Michigan. And among the 3 couples, you have one couple who've been together for a decade. That's Jack C. Newell and Alana Arenas, and they're happily married. And then you have another couple who've been together for about 5 years, and they're miserable. And then there's a third couple who have just gotten together, and you kind of don't know what's going to happen to them, but you feel like it could go either way.
That's interesting. That's a good juxtaposition there.
It is. I was thinking there's some directors that really do focus in on relationship movies, and having only made a few films so far, this seems to be your niche, is relationship movies, obviously with these two. What director has influenced you?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I mean, there's the French New Wave director Eric Roemer is a huge influence on me. I don't know if you guys have seen his films, but they're all about, people instead of plot. And, when it comes to making films, I don't really think about trying to emulate the kind of movies that I love necessarily. Even though I'm a big cinephile, I mean, I teach film history for a living. I just kind of make movies about what interests me. And when it came to Mercury in Retrograde, I really felt like the subject matter from my first feature, Cool Apocalypse, was not done with me. I kind of just felt like there was further territory to be mined. I felt like I could go deeper and darker, and that's what we did. So,
question for you: you teach film history, right? You mentioned.
Correct. Yes.
So, what was it that? Let's take it all the way back to the first movies that really, when you saw them, you said, "Oh, that's what I want to do." Like, what was it that set you on this path?
To be honest with you, it goes all the way back to my childhood. When I was a kid growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, I saw Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho on television.
Wow. How old?
10 years old.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
That might be around the same age I saw it. So
on public television, commercials, and it blew me away. I mean, I think that's the right age to see that film. Because
it's tame by today's standards.
It is tame by today's standards, but Hitchcock, his directorial style is so strong that watching that film really made me realize what a director was. It really made me realize what a directorial personality was. It was for the first time I was aware of the person behind the camera rather than just the people in front of it. And also around that same time, I saw The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is one of my dad's favorite movies. He showed that to me around the same time. And
also on PBS?
Also on TBS, okay. The Turner Broadcasting System. Before TCM existed, Ted Turner had TBS. And this is like mid-1980s. When there weren't a whole lot of television stations, like even if you had cable, there were less than 30 channels that you had. Today, there's 500. But TBS would show, classic films. They would show like a weird mixture of films. They would show things like Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, but then they would show James Bond movies and then Atlanta Braves games, So you would kind of watch all of these weird things. And today, I think it's kind of harder in a way, I think, for kids to get into classic cinema, because today you have 500 channels and people only watch like what's being marketed to them. But in a way, so I feel like I was kind of lucky to grow up, at that time. But I also want to say about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it was a similar thing to Psycho, even though Sergio Leone has a very different, visual style. Sure. There's an exuberance to the filmmaking in a movie like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I found really exciting, even as a kid.
Lives on perhaps to this day in like Tarantino's work, right?
Exactly. And, Tarantino rips that film off all the time.
Sure.
And now everybody's ripping Tarantino off. So it's just go on forever.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you saw and realized the influence of the directors at such a young age. I think it happens to most of us probably a little bit older. I remember, maybe in high school when I was really starting to finally look at a movie a little bit more serious than just entertainment, when I was like, oh, this is like art, that somebody made this movie, it started hitting me, and like seeing like even a guy like Tarantino, seeing his fingerprints on a film 2 times and realizing without even hearing that it was Tarantino, just knowing, oh, this is the same guy that made this other movie, realizing that, it's a fun thing.
Exactly. Well, I talk to my students about that all the time. I mean, that's the auteur theory right there.
Totally.
In fact, I use Tarantino as an example. I say, if I told you guys that I was going to show you a Tarantino film, but I didn't say which one, you all would have expectations for what this hypothetical movie would be like. And I say, what would you expect? And then they start saying things. They say, oh, well, it would probably have Samuel L. Jackson in it or whatever. So yeah, we have fun in class.
So the Music Box comes up with their new service called Music Box Direct. So this is at-home service, Jawheads, for the Music Box Theater. You've heard we've had the general manager on the podcast. We talk about the Music Box all the time. They launched this Music Box Direct. You can rent movies, and these are unique movies. They're curated. This time around, at the beginning, there are a lot of local films. Do they call you up and say, hey, we want to feature you on Music Box Direct?
That's more or less how it happened. It was an email instead of a phone call. But I was, just really flattered because the Music Box, as you guys know, is a Chicago institution.
Sure.
I mean, I've been going there since 1993 when I first moved here. I was a freshman in college. So to me, that's like church, that and the Gene Siskel Film Center. And they didn't even specify which movie they wanted to show, because I have 3 features. They said, do you want to do something with us? And I said, yeah, absolutely. What do you have in mind? And then they told me about that they were putting together something that they are calling the Chicago Filmmakers Collection. And they said, yeah, we're going to have about 6 or 8 films by local filmmakers. And do you want to be a part of it? And I said, yeah, of course. And I thought about it, and I thought Mercury in Retrograde, which is my second film, would be sort of the most appropriate one for this particular program, even though it takes place in Michigan primarily.
Still, it's great. But we will put a link. I hope, Matt, you'll put a link in the show notes to go right to the film and the Music Box Direct.
You bet. It's in the show notes, Jawheads.
It's great, too, because we've had Jennifer Reeder on. She's in the collection. We got to go through this whole list. Yeah, we got to go through this whole list and get these filmmakers on. For the Jawheads that want to see all your films, Michael, learn more about you, and we will talk after the break on your upcoming feature you're about to shoot. But if they want to learn more and see your other movies, where should we send them online?
The best place to go is my personal website, which is called White City Cinema. And it's whitecitycinema.com.
Great. There'll be a link to that in the show notes as well.
It's a great name for a site/company, White City Cinema. Love it.
Yeah, just wait till that movie finally. It didn't
The
come
Devil
out,
in the
right?
White City?
Yeah.
No, I don't know where that's at.
The last I heard, they're going to do it as a TV show.
That's what I think I've heard also.
Yeah.
Can we throw that in the fish tank, Phil? I think may have even thrown that question at Phil one other time because it's been so many changes with that project throughout the years. So
Well, when it finally hits, Michael, you will get the benefit of some misguided traffic, I think. And that's always nice.
Yeah.
Michael, you may have heard, we like to play a game called Keep, Destroy, Spielberg Remake. We're celebrating Toni Collette. We did one last week. And we all agreed on the order. So this time I shook things up and I went with the 3, what I would consider her last 3 great films, the most recent Toni Collette films: Hereditary, Knives Out, and I'm thinking of ending things. You got to keep one, destroy one, and have Spielberg remake one. What do you do with these 3?
That is tough. Okay, so I have not seen I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just say let's kill that one because I haven't seen it. And what are the other options?
Hereditary,
Yeah.
and Knives Out.
And one has to be remade, and the other has to be
Yep, destroyed for all of time.
destroyed.
But specifically-
No,
we
no, no,
already
no. That
destroyed.
one's the one that's killed. That one's the one that's fine.
Destroying
Yeah.
the one I haven't seen.
Yeah. So the other option is you get to keep one as is.
Oh,
pristine.
keep it as is.
And the remake is specifically Steven Spielberg.
You know what? I'm gonna say keep Knives Out as is and remake Hereditary.
With Spielberg, huh?
Yes, without a doubt. I find Hereditary to be a little problematic, to be honest with you. So I feel like it could be improved upon. Yeah. But Toni Collette is phenomenal. She's to me the best part of that whole film. But I find the ending, in particular, it's so indebted to Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The whole Hail Adrian.
Hail Satan.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Hail Satan. So I think Spielberg might be able to improve upon it.
Matt, you agree with this?
Well, I certainly agree about the ending of Hereditary, but no, I would absolutely. Mike, you've got to check out I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Mm-hmm. It is a challenging movie, probably the most challenging movie of last year, but it's Charlie Kaufman, and it is an absolute. I don't want to say throw. It's really unlike anything I've ever seen. It's kind of
a gem for sure. Yeah,
yeah. And Toni Collette, she's not a huge part of that, but just because of the movie and everything about it, I'm just going to keep that one as is. I would love to see Spielberg remake Knives Out. I think that's the perfect fare for Steven Spielberg with all his bombast. It's got that Goonies Clue kind of feel, which I think would fit well into his wheelhouse. And then I'm keeping Hereditary by default.
You mean you're destroying Hereditary?
Oh, destroying. Correct. Sorry. Yeah. Mixed it up there.
So I'm with you, Matt. I would do that same order. Destroy Hereditary. I'd like to see Spielberg. You're totally right. I think Spielberg Knives Out remake, as good as Knives Out is and as big a fan as I am of it, I think Spielberg could do it justice. And I'm Thinking of Ending Things it was on my top 10 last year. I'm a huge fan. So
haunting movie.
All right. So Michael is sitting in on this entire jaw. He has his top 5 Prodigal Son movies picked out. And we're doing this topic, Matt, because the movie we're reviewing, Concrete Cowboy, is out on Netflix. And let me just say this. Idris Elba puts on a cowboy hat and rides a horse in the latest Netflix drama, Concrete Cowboy. The strange thing here is that it's not a Western per se. The film is set in modern day Philadelphia. Matt K and I put on our boots and our bandanas, then ordered us some Philly cheesesteak sandwiches to enjoy with the movie.
Be alone out here, man. I'm gonna get my money, and I'm gonna get up out of here. You with me or not, bro?
But them streets done made you a man overnight. I'm your father, man.
You ain't my father! I mean, you a father to everyone else out here.
Oh, you hate me, man. I was just like him now. I don't know who they expect us to grow up and be free, watching over our shoulder all our lives.
I have something for you.
Oh, look.
Like real cowboy.
People used to believe that breaking a horse meant crushing the will of the animal. The only way you can realize its true spirit is through love.
You don't have to get out to grow up.
What's going on?
The city decide they don't need horses no more.
Y'all trying to tear this place down.
Come on, man. How you gonna do that to us? This is where we live.
Caleb McLaughlin, best known to me from Stranger Things, plays Cole, a young teen living with his mom in Detroit when the film opens. After being involved in another fight at school, his mom has had enough. She makes the tough decision to drive Cole to Philadelphia to stay with his father, played by Idris Elba. Cole has not seen his father or been in Philly for a good 10 years. The unique thing about this part of Philadelphia? Horses. This is based on some truth. The neighborhood known as North Philadelphia still has horse stables, and there are horses out on the street in front of people's houses. This is a strange sight in a major city these days. The stables there give the community stability and a place to gather. Cole actually gets involved with an old friend selling and dropping off drugs. However, slowly he begins to get involved with the stables. For starters, he has to clean them. Now I thought once Cole was done cleaning the stables, he was going to know karate and fight in the all Philly under 18 karate tournament. His finishing move could have been the horse kick. All right, no wax on, no wax off here. Instead, we have a family drama that did not connect for me. For starters, now I know this is a human story, but what about the condition these horses live in? Are rundown stables and no land to run around in the best spot for horses to live? Matt, am I galloping up the wrong path, or were you concerned for the horses as well?
No, I was concerned. If I'm being 100% honest, when they show the stables, I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, that looks like a nice place. They're run down. And I think that was the choice of the filmmaker to we get a lot of this urban decay in the movie, and it's shot so honestly, and the streets feel so narrow and dirty and broken down. Yes, was I concerned about the horses? I was. And I think that's addressed at some point in the movie. It's also the fact that they're the victims of gentrification, and that these neighborhoods aren't getting the resources they need. And, I think that these are topics the movie could have really explored better. It's based on a book. I haven't read it, but the movie at least made me really want to read the book.
That's what I will give the movie credit for the most. I looked up a ton about this. Number one, I was like, wait a minute, there's horses like living out on the street, and there's stables right here in this very urban setting of Philadelphia. Now, we used to have the Noble stables in Old Town, which was, in between like North Avenue and Division.
That's where the cop horses live, right?
Well, there were cop horses, but they did do like a horse show. You could actually go there and see these horses perform. And I remember driving around there, and that was sort of odd, seeing like stables and horses right in a very populous area of Chicago.
Right.
But still, in the movie, it was shocking to see horses like this just in Philadelphia.
It was shocking at first, but that's part of what I think this movie does well, because it explains exactly why. There's this old timer. They're all sitting around the campfire. And I want to disagree with you that this isn't a Western. I think it is.
I said per se.
Fair enough. Okay, fine. And he explains exactly why. I mean, the city used to be run by horse and buggy, and that's how people got their groceries and their milk and all the things they needed. And then, slowly cars came in and that went away, but the horses are still there. It's the remnants of a lost time. And even to this day, I mean, there are horses in Chicago, like you mentioned, and not just the police. There are people that own horses, and they can ride on the street. That's completely legal. But that old timer was one of the real Fletcher Street riders. And this is another thing that I really liked about this movie. At the end, it turns out most of the actors, aside from the leads, were actual people that lived in this neighborhood and really rode these horses. Even some of the bigger parts in this movie, which I think it was akin to Nomadland in that way. Now, I'm not comparing it to Nomadland. I think, again, this was like a potential that they could have really sort of gotten more from. Not to take anything away from the performances, because I thought that all the actual Fletcher Street actors did an amazing job. Like, I didn't have an inkling at any point that they weren't professional actors. But I don't think the true story of what happened there was explored enough, because they tack on this family drama, which I get is from the book, on top, that just seems so cookie cutter and kind of bland. The plot wasn't all that.
I agree. I think if anything, it would have made for a great documentary about these
totally
Fletcher
in my
Street.
Notes.
Okay, so about the Fletcher Street stables, that would have been extremely fascinating to me. The way they implemented this family drama, I don't think completely worked for me. So I think we're on the same page.
It was serviceable. Two things I really want to mention, though. The camera work. There's a couple of chase scenes, and then just even like with people standing around on the street, there's this real handheld feel to the movie that was kind of kinetic and fun, and it made it stand apart from like another cheesy family drama. Like, at least the camera work wasn't crappy.
But let me cut in, because on that chase scene, I know the one that you're talking about. I mean, I think it was almost a little bit too much for this particular movie.
I loved it.
Oh man, I almost got sick.
No, I
just
dug
the
it.
motion of it all.
No, it made you feel that pressure of being chased down by the police and running through these little alleys and trying to escape. I dug that 100%. The colors in this are also very oversaturated and amped up. I dug that. Like the blues and the reds really pop. It's kind of a pretty movie, and I like the camera work. I agree it's very kinetic, so if that's not your thing, you might be turned off, but I enjoyed that. And then the soundtrack, my last note, I thought the soundtrack was awesome. It's got a lot of like, you know, obvious like super hip hoppy stuff, but then like you got Coltrane in there and a whole bunch of other like just chill tracks. It was a really cool soundtrack.
I will, one other note, say that there was a scene in there where they actually are riding the horses, where it's like a festive day, and the neighborhood comes out. I think it needed a little bit more of that to show the connection between the community and the horses. We only get that one scene, and it's kind of a bogus scene where they do a horse race where clearly there's not enough land to actually have a real horse race, but somehow they try to pull it off. I didn't care for it.
It needed more of something. I don't know if it was particularly that necessarily, but yeah, I think it was just really the failure of a off the shelf plot that made this not work as well as it could have.
Well, Cole was our prodigal son who returned to Philadelphia. Do you have a jaw-dropping moment in this movie, Matt?
Yeah, there's a horse. This isn't a spoiler, right in the trailer. Horse in the apartment.
That's mine as well.
I didn't see the trailer, so when I saw this moment, I was kind of taken aback. There's, you know, when he first goes in to see his dad's place, there's a horse, which just wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't either. That was my jaw-dropping moment as well. How about a movie poster quote?
Get on this horse and ride. That's my quote.
I went with, Cole should have learned karate.
I see what you're doing there. How many jaws?
1.5 jaws. 1.5 jaws.
I'm way higher on this. I think it's so interesting because of the subject matter being so different, and the camera work, soundtrack, and the colors, the look of the film, and the performances added so much that even with a cookie cutter plot, I'm giving it 2.5 jaws. I recommend it.
Wow. 2.5 jaws for Matt K. 1.5 jaws from Rye the Movie Guy. If you see Concrete Cowboy, it is streaming right now on Netflix, and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can always email us feedback@cinemajaw.com. That was our tie-in here, Matt. Our top 5 Prodigal Sons daughters because of Cole's return. And we threw this over to Michael with only about a day and a half notice. Was this an easy list for you to come up with, or tough to narrow down to 5?
It was tough to narrow down to 5, but it was an enjoyable challenge.
Good. All right. Well, you're getting us started at number 5. I'm eager to hear where everybody went with this.
All right. Well, first of all, I'll be curious to know if you guys have seen this film. My number 5 is an independent American dramedy from 2016. It's called Donald Cried, by a writer-director named Chris Avedizian. And it's a pretty wonderful comedy drama about a guy who's kind of a yuppie scumbag who goes back home to the small town where he grew up to settle his grandmother's estate after she's died. And he hasn't been home in years. And while he's at home, he has to kind of, confront his past through a relationship with an old high school buddy of his who's a total loser. So it's a really fascinating film because it's about the relationship basically between these two guys, and it's about how you can't really escape where you come from.
I have not seen that one, man.
Phil, can you do us a favor and throw it in the fish tank to see if it's streaming somewhere, and let us know, and the Jawheads know where we can catch this one?
Michael, I am so glad you're picking, you dug a little deeper, because mine is one I've talked about before. If you put a gun to my head and said, tell me your favorite Tim Burton movie, I would say Batman. But my second favorite, I would say Big Fish, which is my pick. It is Ewan McGregor returning home. Albert Finney plays his father who's dying, and he's squandered the time he could have spent with his dad because he sees him as a failure of a parent. And he's always telling these tall tales, big fish stories, hence the title of the movie. But he sort of falls into these stories in his time with his dad as they're kind of reconciling, and he comes to understand what the stories mean in the larger scope of his life. And maybe some of them might have even been true. He kind of taps into the truthfulness behind the tall tales. It's Tim Burton, so of course it's got this style and panache to it, and it's a really fun watch.
And a really sad ending.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of spelled out for you right in the beginning.
All right, so I need a little help with my number 5 and number 4, because I don't even know if these count as Prodigal Sons. But he goes somewhere and he comes back, so it counted for me. My number 5 pick, you can't go wrong with a Tom Cruise movie. And in 1989, he made Born on the 4th of July.
I mean, I guess so. The whole going to war and coming back thing is often thrown around as a prodigal son returning. So
right. So in this one, he goes to Vietnam, and obviously it changes him. He's a firm believer behind America and the country before he goes to Vietnam. Bad things happen over in Vietnam, and the son returns, and he is a changed man. So that's where I thought I came in with the Prodigal Son. Again, a bit of a stretch, but if we're talking great Tom Cruise performances, it deserves to be on the list, right? A huge fan of Born on the 4th of July, and one that I think a lot of people, as now it's older, to us it might not seem older, but
no,
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who haven't seen it. Michael, where do you sit?
I think
Born on the 4th of July counts?
No, I think it counts. You argued your case well.
Okay. All right. That was my number 5, Born on the 4th of July. Into our 4s. What do you got sitting there, Michael?
Okay. My number 4 is We Own the Night by James Gray.
I have seen this one.
I think is a pretty terrific gangster film from 2007, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Mark Wahlberg as brothers. One is a gangster, the other is a cop. Phoenix is the gangster, Wahlberg is the cop, and their father, played by Robert Duvall, who's always great, is also a cop. So the whole premise is that Phoenix is, the gangster club owner who's involved with the Russian mafia. He's sort of the black sheep of the family. And over the course of the narrative, he has to kind of reconcile himself to the rest of his family. There's an amazing car chase sequence in that film, which has become kind of famous. But I just love James Gray. I think he's one of the most interesting directors working in Hollywood today. Of course, more recently, he made Ad Astra, Lost City of Z, The Immigrant. But he's one of the few directors working in Hollywood who is kind of a throwback to the film school generation of the 70s, where he's not really interested in making franchise films. He's making, serious, intelligent films aimed at an adult audience. So I love We Own the Night.
I have not seen We Own the Night, but I'm on board.
It's good.
That's one of the bigger James Gray films also.
Oh yeah, it was the one he made right before Two Lovers. Also,
right.
He did like 4 in a row with Joaquin.
He did do Two Lovers. Yeah, that's right. That was another good film.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit.
Due for re-examination, especially with Joaquin's rise lately. All right, over to me, and I'm going with the original, not the 2010 remake, the original Clash of the Titans. The prodigal son being Perseus, cast out by Zeus, only to redeem himself by clashing with Medusa and the Kraken and all the other titans he fights along the way. Just one of the first like sword and sandal movies I saw as a kid. Absolutely fell in love with it. Got me into like Conan the Barbarian and all that fantasy stuff. This may have been my entry point, honestly. But the thing I think I like the most, and it's led me down the rabbit hole. I'm really wishing I could remember the animator's name. Phil, maybe you know it right off the cuff. Harry something Hausen. I'm forgetting it.
Ray Harryhausen.
Ray Harryhausen. Thank you. Who animated that and Jason of the Argonauts. So anytime you see him, like when he fights the Kraken, that's probably the most famous scene. All those creatures were animated by this guy who had this prolific career, and it's worth watching anything he put his fingers on. I think he was super talented in a day before CG effects.
I remember just being freaked out by the Medusa.
Yeah, that scene is so much tension builds up where he's checking his mirror shield to see where she is. It's a great movie. It's Indiana Jones before Indiana Jones, you know?
On to my number 4, and again, controversy, as I said, with not my number 5 and 4, because in this particular case, I do think he's a prodigal son, but I think he doesn't return. So I don't know where this, if it really fits, but in 2017, Kevin Spacey was about to make this movie, All the Money in the World, and all hell broke loose. They had to recast him, and in his place, they put in
Christopher Plummer, right?
Christopher Plummer in Kevin Spacey's. Well, the movie is about J. Paul Getty, his grandson, John Paul Getty III, played by Charlie Plummer, who was basically a kid living like a bohemian lifestyle, obviously from this extremely wealthy family. And he's living in a squat. He's going to nightclubs and taking part in like demonstrations. And this leads him to be an easy target for a kidnapping. So that's why I got him as my prodigal son. He's just sort of taking advantage of the wealth and the name of the family, and not really caring about the status of where he needs to go in life. And he ends up getting kidnapped. And then the rest of the movie is, are they going to play the game with the kidnappers and actually pay money for the ransom to get the kid back, or are they not going to? So I don't know if it qualifies 100% as a prodigal son.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to.
Michael, save me on this one.
You argued your case because I
far
think
too kind.
I know. I think that the key to the prodigal son is that or prodigal daughter is that they become someone other than what their parents want them to be. That's to me is more important than any sort of going away and returning.
This is good. I wish I would have talked to Michael before I did my top 5 list. He's got it down. This would have helped me. All right, into our 3s. What do you got sitting there?
Okay, well, it's a film I've already talked about tonight. My number 3, this is a stretch for me. I got The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Sergio Leone, which if you look at the overarching plot, it's not a prodigal son story. It's about 3 bandits who are looking for buried gold during the Civil War. It's a Western, but there is one scene in this film that I do think epitomizes the prodigal son concept, which is the scene where Tuco, the Mexican bandit played by Eli Wallach, goes to a monastery to visit his brother, who he has not seen in many years. And the purpose of going to this monastery is Clint Eastwood's character is on his deathbed from sunstroke and dehydration. So Clint Eastwood is supposed to convalesce there. But while he's there, the 2 brothers have this kind of reunion. And Tuco's brother is a monk. He's living and working at the monastery as a monk, and he chastises him for having become an outlaw. But Tuco says, no, I took the harder road. You did the easy thing. You stayed behind with our parents, and you're too afraid to do what I did, to go out into the world, to become a bandit, make money by any means necessary. And I just want to say, I find The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly to be like a weirdly emotional film. And to me, that scene is just strangely emotional and poignant because of the conflict between the brothers.
Sure. I mean,
Well
that's a beat I've seen echoed, but yeah. Plus, there's a masculinity, like this undeniable masculinity about the entire movie. And then to see an emotional scene with these otherwise very reserved and guarded characters kind of amplifies the meaning of it,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. You guys are going to hate my number 3, but I'm going to throw it out there. This is my stretch, but hear me out. I'm going with Iron Man 2008, Robert Downey Jr.
It is terrible.
No, here's why.
Now I feel good about my 5 and 4.
He's gone far away from what Howard Stark wanted for him, as we find out later in the film. He is a warmonger. He's an arms dealer. He's not too concerned with what he's doing to the world, by selling these weapons. only to be waylaid or kidnapped by his own arms, right? He returns from that cave improved and at least on a path toward redemption. It takes him a while, takes him the course of the film, and you could argue the subsequent films to redeem himself, to get on the path toward being somebody who's improving the world, which is what Howard Stark had intended his path to be. So even though the father is absent, he's there in sort of these film reels that he finds, and the message comes through. So it is the prodigal son returning to the path set forth by his father. There you go.
That's great. You got another Marvel film in there. Well done, Matt.
Hey, Mike, would you say that was well argued?
I would. I think this is the biggest stretch so far, but I'll allow it.
Come on.
I will allow it as the judge.
Okay. My number 3 pick, I finally think I got a prodigal son myself on this one. I don't feel terrible about this pick. This one came out in 1994. Brad Pitt's the actor here. He played Tristan in Legends of the Fall. And this was a big family drama. The father, the head of the family, was played by Anthony Hopkins. And it involves 3 brothers. One of them is Brad Pitt. He's the middle brother. And the youngest brother is actually about to get married. It meets this girl, beautiful young woman, going to get married, and then decides he's going to join the army and fight in World War I right before they get married. And the brothers then are convinced to go, really because the younger brother is going. Brad Pitt's character goes to sort of look after Samuel, his younger brother. And wouldn't you know it, Matt, the younger brother dies while he's at war. Tristan comes back, feeling guilty. What does he do? He makes moves on his younger brother's ex-fiance.
Like you do.
Now he even feels worse. And this is when he actually leaves the family and he goes on this almost like a soul-searching adventure. The movie takes turns at this point, and the older brother starts to get involved in the family business. But at this point, Brad Pitt travels the world. He goes hunting and he's writing letters back to the family. And as he comes back, he's a changed man. He's finally sort of ridden of that guilt that he had and lives a little bit straighter of a path than he probably would have. I think this actually is sort of the prodigal son story, more so than my 5 and 4, Legends of the Fall. Haven't seen it in a long time, but when I was younger, loved it.
Certainly fits the mold more than your last pick. So no arguments.
All right. That's good.
That's a solid pick.
Oh, thanks, Michael.
Solid.
Now I feel good. What do you got sitting at 2?
Okay. For me, number 2 is a French movie called A Christmas Tale from 2008. And I thought for sure one of you guys was going to pick The Royal Tenenbaums by Wes Anderson. Maybe you have it, coming up. But so I thought that would be too obvious. But there is a great French movie that was influenced by The Royal Tenenbaums called A Christmas Tale, starring Mathieu Amalric and Catherine Deneuve. And this is one of the best Christmas movies I've ever seen. It's about a very dysfunctional family. And one of the children in the family in particular is a total screw up. That's the Mathieu Amalric character. He has been excommunicated from the family because he's such a terrible person. But this one particular Christmas, he's invited back because the mother has cancer. And it turns out she needs a stem cell operation, and that this particular son is the only one who is capable of, being a donor. So he comes back after having been banished from the family for years. And of course, the sparks fly as soon as he comes home. It's a great comedy drama.
And is it done in the Wes Anderson style?
Not really. I mean, Arnaud Desplechin, he started making films before Wes Anderson. So he already kind of had a pretty strong visual style of his own.
Okay.
But I think that the notion of the family get together and the parent-child dynamic, I know he has spoken of that as influencing the concept of this film.
Perfect.
I mean, geez, who isn't looking for a new Christmas movie to watch, right? And like every year we watch the same 4 movies, so that's now on my list. Thank you. All right, swinging it over to me. I'm going with another film from 2008. Jonathan Demme directed this one. I think perfectly fits the mold of the prodigal son, except that it is a prodigal daughter in this case. Anne Hathaway's return in the movie Rachel Getting Married. She's coming home from rehab. She's made all the mistakes in the world, including a very, really haunting family tragedy. And she comes home because her sister's getting married. And just like you said, Mike, the sparks fly. I mean, there's all kinds of conflicts. There's conflicts between the dad. There's conflicts between the sister. She meets a new guy. She's struggling with addiction. It's a great movie. It's a little too long. Maybe they could have trimmed 15, 20 minutes off, but I think for the most part, people really like it. It's certainly one of Anne Hathaway's, I should say, it's one of my favorite Anne Hathaway movies.
I think you were about to say it's one of Anne Hathaway's best.
I was, but is it?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, performance-wise, for sure. What I like, Matt, is we watched this for Anne Hathaway month maybe a year ago when we were celebrating her.
Right.
And you've brought it up a couple of times. That makes me happy because you clearly like the film.
Well, that's what we do, right? We
Right.
try to expose people to movies they haven't seen.
So I went with A Prodigal Daughter for my number 2 pick as well. And in 2003, I thought this actress was going to have one heck of a career. Didn't turn out nearly as good as I had hoped. But in 2003, I was a big fan of Katie Holmes. And she was in Pieces of April. This was a smaller movie in which Katie played the rebellious daughter of a family that is already at when the movie opens, she's moved out and she's living in a poor area, rough area of New York City. The family is from the suburbs of New York, and she wants to treat the family to Thanksgiving dinner. So it's very much a Thanksgiving themed film. Katie Holmes can't cook. She needs all the help from the apartment complex to sort of get the turkey going. And on the ride over there, Patricia Clarkson plays her mother. She's ill, has cancer. The family doesn't get along with Katie. She's like the black sheep of the family. But when they arrive, they realize that Katie's gone through a lot of, work to get this done. And maybe she's starting to realize the importance of family. And it has a nice message at the end. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It's a much smaller film, but Pieces of April is worth checking out.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either. I always liked Katie Holmes as well. And did she retire or is she in semi-retirement?
Throw it in the fish tank, Phil. Is Katie Holmes retired? I don't think she's retired, but yeah, I mean, it definitely things have slowed down.
Her personal life began to overshadow her career, and that may have had a bad effect on her trajectory.
I can't recall the last time she was in anything.
She played, I think recently she had a role as a mom in a movie, which was a bit shocking because prior to that, she'd always played these like ingenue type roles. So I don't know. Phil, can we look that one up as well? What her most recent role was?
Yep. But I remember in 1999, she was in Go, which I was a big fan of.
Yeah,
and then this movie, 2003, Pieces of April. I thought, oh my God, 2005, I think it was when she was in Batman Begins. It's like, oh, here goes the Katie Holmes. And then it was just nothing really materialized after that.
Yeah.
She got Tom Cruised.
She may have.
All right. It is our number 1 picks here on Cinemajaw. Michael, what do you got sitting there?
Okay. This is a movie that nobody else picked, I can say with 100% certainty. I'm talking about Sancho the Bailiff.
Don't have it as my number 1.
No, this is a Japanese film from 1954, but it's one of my favorites of all time by the great director Kenji Mizoguchi, who was a contemporary of Akira Kurosawa. But this epitomizes the Prodigal Son film. It takes place in medieval Japan, hundreds of years in the past. And it's about a family that is torn apart by this evil governor in feudal Japan who kind of has it out for the father of this family because he's a virtuous person. And so he sells the children into slavery and sells the mother into prostitution.
Ooh.
And so the entire film is about these two children, trying to escape slavery and find their way back home to their mother. But their father's last words to them is, don't ever lose your compassion for other people. And because then you'll be no more than a beast. And the son in the family, who's really the main character, he does forget his father's words along his journey. And I won't give away the ending, but I will say it's, to me, one of the most moving endings in the history of cinema. And I think I see a little narrative thread through all these movies that we've been talking about, which is the passage of time. I think whoever came up with this idea, actually was a genius.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was Matt.
Oh,
yes.
Terrible.
I rarely get called a genius by a film historian. I'll take it. Thank you.
Well, because I think cinema can capture the passage of time better than most narrative art forms, because it is temporal. So whenever you see a movie about time passing, you believe that time has passed. And I think that, if you want to film a scene that's a reunion between characters who haven't seen each other in a long time, you can do that in a film more effectively than I think you can in other art forms, like a play or a song or a painting.
Or a book.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting. I never really stopped to think about that, but you're right.
I actually agree with everything Michael said, except the Matt's a genius part.
No, that was the most. That's how you knew he was right. Like everything after that, of course. Boy, Mike, if you held me in high esteem before, just wait till you hear my number one pick.
There he goes, down the toilet.
Really, where else can you get a Clint Howard performance that comes anywhere near his Eagle Bauer performance in Rock and Roll High School, except his performance in the movie from 1986 where he played Rughead? I'm talking about Charlie Sheen in The Wraith. Have you guys ever seen this?
Never seen it.
Gem?
I've not seen it.
Let me just set it up for you. So a guy is killed. His girlfriend gets sort of starts dating the guy that killed him, but he's a tyrant. He's a gang leader, right? She doesn't necessarily like him. She just doesn't have any other options in this small town. Suddenly, this Dodge Interceptor that's like all black, like totally murdered out, appears, and inside is this guy in all black armor. Turns out that it's Charlie Sheen. He, one by one, using this supercar, because he's from outer space or the great beyond or something like that, kills these gang members in death races. And each one is more explosive and greater than the last. The whole time, Clint Howard is screaming about how it's a wraith, man, it's an evil spirit, and it's no good. His performance is so over the top. It's just plain amazing. And let's not forget, it's Charlie Sheen. And then he rescues the girl. I'm just going to ruin this movie. It's from 1986. He rescues the girl. His brother, who he left behind, who had been looking up to this Charlie Sheen character because they don't recognize him. He comes back in a different body. Now they all suddenly realize that it's him back from the dead in a new body. And he's like, this is close. Listen to me. The Wraith is way, way better than it has any business being. It's one of my favorite, like, schlocky 80s movies. It's that good. I put it at number one. The Prodigal Son returns from the dead. That's how good it is.
One question here.
Yeah.
Not for you. Still a genius, Michael? Still a genius?
I'm going to say yes.
I mean, come on. Clint Howard, guys.
All right. My number one, it came out just a couple of years ago, 2018. Lucas Hedges, who we just did trivia on a couple weeks back, played Ben in the movie Ben is Back. And this is definitely more of a, substance abuse movie more than it is a Prodigal Son. But it is Ben, at the time of the movie opens, is coming back from a rehab center. and it is around Christmas time. Julia Roberts plays his mom, and he gets inside the house. He's not supposed to be out of the rehab, so his stepfather, Julia Roberts' new husband, doesn't want Ben staying with the family, but he says he can stay clean and stay sober and won't be an issue for the time that he's there. Well, of course, all hell breaks loose, and while they go to church, the house actually gets vandalized and broken into, and the family dog is stolen. And this leads Julia Roberts and Ben, Lucas Hedges, to go around the neighborhood that Ben was around using drugs and going to the different drug dealers' houses looking for the dog to see who would have stole it, because he has obviously some past debts out there. Again, more of a substance abuse, but he does leave, come back. He's sort of a changed individual, and it's a strong performance from Lucas Hedges. It's a good one if you haven't seen Ben is Back.
Well, I know you Ride the Movie guy, and for you to have a Julia Roberts movie in a number one slot, it must be a very strong performance.
Not kidding. Honorable mentions.
Oh, wait, I want to say something. I have not seen that movie, but the lead actor in my next film is in it. Ben is Back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his name is Cameron Roberts. And I don't know who he plays, but I know that he's in it. So put that in the fish tank.
Yeah, throw it in the fish tank. Cameron Roberts in Ben is Back.
Ben is Back.
Interesting. Honorable mentions. I had Royal Tenenbaums. The only reason I didn't have it on my list is because I talk about Wes Anderson movies all the time. Only reason why. That's the only honorable mention I wrote down.
I mean, I put The Wraith on my list, so I was digging deep.
You had nothing.
Yeah. You got any honorables, Mike?
I had no honorables.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Jawheads, if you have one at the top of your head and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can email us at feedback@cinemajaw.com. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we have a CinemaWAR looking at WandaVision, plus movie trivia, Matt versus Mike in Thunder Force cast movie trivia. Stick with us.
Toni Collette has been on my periphery for years and years. Little Miss Sunshine, The Sixth Sense, but it wasn't until Ari Aster's breakout Hereditary that I truly saw the breadth of her talent. In fact, Hereditary's breakout is arguably thanks to Collette's incendiary performance. The dinner scene in particular, when a shattered family sits and tries to heal, only to be goaded into releasing toxic emotion across the table. Collette burns this scene to ashes.
You okay, Mom?
What?
Is there something on your mind?
Is there something on your mind?
Just seems like there might be something you want to say.
Peter.
Like what? I mean, why would I want to say something so I could watch you sneer at me?
Sneer at you? I don't ever sneer at you.
Oh, sweetie, you don't have to. You get your point across.
Okay, so fine, then say what you want to say then.
Peter.
I don't want to say anything. I've tried saying
Okay, so
things.
try again. Release yourself.
Oh, release you, you mean?
Yeah, fine, release me. Just say it. Just fucking say it.
Don't you swear at me, you little shit! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Do you understand? All I do is worry and slave and defend you, and all I get back is that fucking face on your face! So full of disdain and resentment and always so annoyed. Well, now your sister is dead. And I know you miss her. And I know it was an accident, and I know you're in pain, and I wish I could take that away for you. I wish I could shield you from the knowledge that you did what you did, but your sister is dead. She is gone forever. And what a waste. If it could have maybe brought us together or something. If you could have just said, I'm sorry, or faced up to what happened. Maybe then we could do something with this, but you can't take responsibility for anything. So now I can't accept, and I can't forgive. Because nobody admits anything they've done.
Jawheads, I want you to do me a favor. Pull your phone out of your pocket and go to your YouTube app. Search for the Cinemajaw channel and hit subscribe. Really, please do it right now. This will do two things. One, it helps us reach more people. We want to spread the good word about film, and you clicking subscribe really helps us do that. And two, it costs you nothing. That's right. Subscribing to Cinemajaw on YouTube is fun and it's free. Think of it as a donation that doesn't even cost you anything. Even if you just listen to the podcast and never really watch the videos, you subscribing on YouTube helps us make the podcast better too. But please check out a few videos while you're there. We think they're pretty good. So right now, while you're listening, before you forget, take your phone out. It shouldn't even interrupt the show. And go to YouTube, search Cinemajaw, and hit subscribe. And thank you so much.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Michael Glover Smith. His film, Mercury in Retrograde, is playing right now on the service Music Box Direct. Look into it, Jawheads. Support local filmmakers like Michael. And speaking of making films, Michael is making a new one. This is going to be your fourth feature film, correct?
That is correct. Production.
What could you tell us about it?
It's been delayed by a whole year. Kind of like how my appearance on this podcast has been delayed by a year. The pandemic's been bad for everybody, and we were ready to go in May of 2020. And then I pushed it back to August of 2020 because we all thought this would be over quickly. And then I had to push it back to, to June of this year. But we're finally ready to go. Everybody is going to be vaxxed. And it's another Chicago relationship story. But, I always want to try and challenge myself and do something I haven't done before. So this is, rather than being just about romantic relationships, it's a family story. And so it's really more about sibling relationships and parent-child relationships.
Nice.
Set in Rogers Park.
So home of Matt Kay and what we found out, Michael Glover Smith. You guys are both in Rogers.
Exactly. Matt, you should, if you want to be an extra, we're going to.
Oh, I would be honored. Sure, man.
To swing by the set. Oh, and we have a great ensemble cast. It's a pretty large cast because it's like, the two parents, the three children, and then a couple of those children have children. So it's like, it's a big cast, but I'm very excited that Wendy Roby is going to be appearing in this film, who you guys might know as the female lead from The People Under the Stairs by Wes Craven.
Oh, wow.
She's the wife. Yeah. She's
interesting.
The crazy wife.
Love that movie. Yep.
Yeah. And also she's very well known for being Nadine Hurley in Twin Peaks, the lady with the eye patch.
That's awesome, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got a cast going over there. I like it.
I love her. So she's going to be like the mom in the family. And then Claire Cooney, who you guys know, is her daughter. And I think seeing the two of them together, hopefully will be pretty special.
This is going to be, I can't wait to see this, man. Just, not for the smallest part, not being to see my neighborhood come to life in a film. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I know Rogers Park very well because, I've lived here for years. And it's really, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the neighborhood will be a character in the film.
That's amazing.
Good stuff. Again, Michael, for the Jawheads listening to this that want to follow along on this new feature, but also check out what you've done in the past, where should we send them online?
Just come straight to my website, whitecitycinema.com, WHITECITYCINEMA.com.
And there'll be a handy link right in the show notes, Jawheads.
Beautiful. Matt, before we get to trivia and before we get to CinemaWAR, we threw a few items into the fish tank, and I know Phil wants to swim up to the top of that tank, so let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here,
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I know I always say this every week, but there is really some cool stuff. There's only 4 questions, but there's like 3 different notepads I have filled up with info on all of these. The first one, I just put "Devil in the White City film status?" ? I believe it was Mike who had said it. It is a TV show now, so it got picked up by Hulu. However, there is a bummer. It was originally Martin Scorsese and Leonardo directing it, and then Leonardo DiCaprio was going to star in it. Those two have apparently seemingly taken step backs. Now, if you look it up, their names are only attached as producers, not even executive, but just producers, which it would have been interesting to have seen that in that style.
Wasn't Johnny Depp also attached to play H.H. Holmes at one point?
I don't know.
No, that was Leo.
Yeah.
Leo
Okay.
was he kind of looks like Captain Jack a little bit, but so I can definitely see that, at least in the facial hair department. But but yeah, it'll in either way be cool to see. We still don't have a release date either, but I'm sure
Things
that'll
could
be thrown
change
in
then
again.
with this project.
I do believe that this was thrown in because I remember looking this up before. 2 years from now, it'll be back in here and I'll have a different status update on it. That much I can guarantee.
People in Chicago are keeping a close eye on that.
Our next one is Donald Cry streaming. It absolutely is. And it is not only streaming, but it is the best kind of streaming. It is streaming for free. It's on YouTube, which does have ads. But there is an alternative option called through a streaming service I've never heard of called Canopy. I don't know that much about it, but I think I'm going to like it because much like my not infamous, but famously beloved streaming service Hoopla, it is provided by your local library. So if you have a library card, you have access to Canopy. I did look at some of like their movie selection, and it's got great stuff. Like I know Moonlight was on there, which is like fascinating for a free movie service, to me at least. They're just like Hoopla, since it's a library. Yeah, man, that was like their whole shtick is like art preservation and making it accessible.
Good,
which is
that's
like,
awesome.
Awesome.
By the way, I want to jump in. My wife is a librarian in Wilmette. So we have Canopy. We use it all the time. It's fantastic. They actually have a lot of Criterion titles and a lot of stuff that you can get for free through them that you can't get through the other streaming services.
Yeah, and I'll pile on since we're talking about Canopy and Hoopla, because I'm a huge Hoopla fan also, since it's free. It depends what library these support.
Yes.
Some may support both, but some, and I know the Chicago Public Library for us only supports Hoopla and not Canopy. So look it up, Jawheads, but almost anywhere in the country, they support one of the two or either both. So.
And I've said it about Hoopla before too, and I did look at their catalog. World Movies are where it's at with these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
They have it's insane. You need a VPN to find this kind of stuff on Netflix.
Yep,
it's great. This one is amazing to me. Katie Holmes is and has been consistently working. So much.
Define working, Phil.
She has appeared in a movie every single year since 2013.
But did they work?
At least one a year. And in her gap year 2012, she did miss. But in 2010, she had 3. And in 2011, she had 2.
Wow.
I'm not going to sit here and say that they're all good, okay? This is definitely a Nicolas Cage career path, but she has been around. I did one better, so Matt asked me to find her most recent. I found the most recent 3. In 2020, she was in The Secret Dare to Dream, which is a movie adaptation of a self-help book. I don't know what that means. I didn't know self-help books had narratives, but she was in it. It was 29% fresh. She starred in it. It doesn't mean it was good, but she worked. Before that was 2020's, I'm sorry, Bram's The Boy 2, a sequel to 2016's The Boy.
Okay.
That one she also starred in is 9% fresh, but money. And then before that, in 2019, she starred in a film called Coda with Patrick Stewart. There was like 3 people in this cast, her and Patrick Stewart and somebody else. The film was allegedly very, very good. It has a 3 out of 4.
There you go.
It was 2019.
You guys, I think I need to cast Katie Holmes.
Truly.
And you know what? Based on these titles, I think I might be able to afford her.
Oh, I love it.
Maybe.
I love it.
She is very much so still around. I guess, like, why wouldn't you just have fun, right? I feel like she has plenty of money, so more power to her. And then our last one, I might ask Ryan's help on this one because I have not seen Ben is Back, but I did look up Cameron's part in that is James Lamson. I couldn't find, like, in the IMDb or Wikipedia synopsis what, like, story
what he did,
part that held. It just showed me the character name. So that's what I don't know if Ryan remembers.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is just knowing what the movie was about in the cast, he's probably one of the past like drug dealer buddies that he was like hooked up with would be my guess, not knowing the names of the characters.
The fact that he has a first and a last name leads me to believe it might be a slightly more substantial part, though.
That's good. That's good. Was that everything, Phil?
That's everybody we got in here.
All right, jump back in that fish tank.
You bet.
Matt, it brings us to a segment called
CinemaWAR.
The war, it works like this. Me and Matt, we're fighting on a topic. Our guest, Michael Glover Smith, is playing judge, jury, and executioner and telling the jawheads at home who he thinks won the Cinema War. We were talking about WandaVision, Phil. What's today's Cinema War topic?
Yeah, in this week's Cinema War, we're definitely talking Disney Plus. So WandaVision hit the streams at the beginning of the year, and like every entry into the MCU, Matt and Ryan are arguing. This week, we're going to find out once and for all if the MCU is extending into the mainstream or if it's just a fanboy factory, as Matt and Ryan butt heads over whether or not WandaVision is a ubiquitous hit or a show for fans by fans. At this point, we listen to the show. We already know. Matt saying WandaVision is for everybody and anybody, and Ryan saying it's nerd fodder. Let the Cinema War begin.
Matt, there are outliers for everything, but for the most part, I cannot imagine someone who has avoided all the Marvel films up to this point jumping in and watching WandaVision. For starters, these are 2 characters most people do not even know. There is no way they jump in here. This is for fanboys of the MCU only.
Most people didn't know Iron Man when it came out. Usually, Cinema War is a matter of opinion. But here, Ryan, you are empirically and demonstrably wrong.
No.
Number-wise, WandaVision is at 91% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 8.1 on IMDb, and 93 on Google. The Rotten Tomatoes score was based on 179 reviews, including the majors from LA, New York, and right here in Chicago. So you're telling me that major market film critics make up the Marvel fan base? Sure, that's why Marvel's winning all the Oscars, right?
You might be onto something here, Matt. When Marvel decided to have major crossover in their films for the MCU, they were already starting to alienate some moviegoers. Not everyone lives in your bubble, Matt, and many of these people did not want to commit to 25 films. Now they're crossing over to TV. Forget it.
Dave Nemetz, senior editor of TV Line, reported this, Ryan. Though I'm sure I'm missing Easter eggs left and right, I'm happy to report that you can fully enjoy the series WandaVision without a PhD in Marvelology. He stated earlier in the article that he'd only ever seen Guardians of the Galaxy and Black Panther before. Hardly a fanboy reporter.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Not being a big superhero fan myself, I will still admit that seeing some of their big event films in the theater is exciting. They're big, they're loud, and sometimes fun. But asking me to watch a TV show about superheroes in my own house by myself, I'll pass. And I think most people will.
Listen, I think it was precisely because of how the show was timed after the conclusion of the major plot of Thanos and all of that, and during the pandemic, and positioned on the streaming platforms that made it the perfect entry point into the Marvel for many casual viewers. Case in point, my wife, she'd only seen a couple of the Marvel films and is in no way a fangirl, but she saw WandaVision, and now we're watching the entire MCU in order.
Ryan Vision. a world with no Marvel movies. I love it. It is clear what Wanda's vision was. Get Marvel fanboys to sign up for Disney Plus. The vision was not, let's try to get non-Marvel fans to become Marvel fans. That just wasn't the vision.
That just makes no sense. Look, Ryan, you android, I don't need the Mind Stone to phase through your wall of bullshit. WandaVision was a massive hit that went well beyond the admittedly huge Marvel fan base and hooked many new users for D+ along the way. It's like saying The Mandalorian was only for Star Wars fans and not trying to attract new users, and then seeing all the Baby Yoda merch on everybody's shelf out there. And it's the same thing for WandaVision. It broke its bounds and bridged TV and movies in an unprecedented way. It's a success that far surpasses the Marvel fanboy, fangirl base and has chipped into even the naysayers. It was Agatha all along.
We are button heads here on CinemaWAR, as we do each and every week. We throw it to our guest, our jury. Michael, what did you think of this CinemaWAR?
You guys, I've got to say it was a close debate. But I think I'm the ultimate judge for this particular debate because I am almost totally ignorant of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I have only seen one Marvel film.
Which one, just out of curiosity?
Iron Man 2.
Ooh.
I know. Odd. It's because my wife has a crush on Mickey Rourke. So she really wanted to see that one.
Tough to blame her, though, you know?
So I have to say, Matt, I called you a genius earlier, but I think here your credibility is taking a hit because you said that this series is hooking people who aren't into Marvel, but it didn't hook me. I haven't seen it. I don't feel compelled to begin. So I'm going to give this one to Rye the movie guy.
Thank you.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked, but all right. You win, Ryan. This is such a huge win. You just made his freaking week, Mike.
I'm so happy that I won. I probably won't sleep tonight. Oh my God, this is fantastic. Because I know it sours Matt because he loves his Marvel so much.
Well,
so
it sours me because it's like proof. I can prove that you're wrong, but go on.
You can't prove me. Michael's the
apparently
Michael's the
I
proof.
can't.
Michael's the proof.
Yeah.
No, but being honest, Michael hasn't watched it. Phil, be honest with us. Have you watched WandaVision?
That's not fair. I don't watch live action.
I'm just wondering, have you or
no?
No, and I haven't either. So there's three of us right here that have not seen it. So I do get 20 seconds to rant and rave.
You do.
So I will pick good television to feature, which we don't normally talk about, but I really enjoyed The Undoing on HBO with Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman, and also on HBO, Ridley Scott's Raised by Wolves.
Oh, yeah. I've been wanting to watch that.
I did watch both those on our HBO Max subscription and enjoyed those thoroughly, especially Raised by Wolves. So there's two recommendations from Rye the movie guy being Rye the TV guy for 10 seconds.
Hey, while you're watching TV, you should check out WandaVision. It's pretty good.
Oh, I'm so glad I won. And to know that if WandaVision, that's the
it's okay. That's
the definitive answer too. I mean, he is a chunk of judgment right there. We've been going to him all show as our judge, and he's a chunk of judgment you can't argue with.
I got to pull back the veil just a little bit, pull back the curtains to look behind the scenes. This morning, we often talk about like what we're going to do on the show over text messages, and we're texting each other. And I think I brought up Florence Pugh and how, you know, with the delay of Black Widow, she had been on such a role, and then that didn't come out. And then we started getting into WandaVision, and we're like, so what are we going to do for CinemaWAR? And I'm like, why don't we do this? We've been arguing about it for half an hour. And he's like, well, you know, I don't think Mike is a big fan of Marvel, so it almost wouldn't be fair to you, Matt. So you were right, Ryan.
Well, I did think we should screenshot our argument on text and release that to the Patreons, because we must have maybe 50 to 75 texts on just arguing on the CinemaWAR before we even did this on the show.
Oh, I 100% agree. In fact, I was thinking the same thing. That's so weird. We should totally do that.
It's too funny. That's what I was doing all day, arguing with Matt.
Just like every other day.
Absolutely. Matt, we like to end this show on a high note. You can hear the music playing. That can only mean one thing. It's time to play some movie trivia. In honor of the movie Thunder Force coming out, which stars Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer, with a small role, a supporting role by Jason Bateman. We're playing McCarthy, Spencer, Bateman movie trivia. Again, all these actors actually started out way before they became stars. They were already appearing in with small roles in movies. So the trivia this week, I'm just going to name the movie. You tell me which one of those three actors appeared in that film. There's no clues since it's a 1 out of 3 shot, but there are steals. So if you miss it, your opponent has a 50-50 shot at that point. They usually start off easy. This week it's a crapshoot, but Michael, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt go first. What do you want to do?
I'm going to let Matt go first.
All right. Okay. Question number 1. Again, your answer is either Melissa McCarthy, Octavia Spencer, or Jason Bateman.
Got it.
Which of the three appears in This Is 40?
Jason Bateman.
That, my friends, is incorrect. It is not Jason Bateman. Michael, you got a chance for a steal.
I'm going to say, I'm going to go with McCarthy.
That is correct. It is 1-0, Michael. Question 2 is over to Michael. The movie is 7 pounds. This was 7 pounds.
I'm going to go with Spencer.
That is correct. 2-0, Michael. Question 3. Again, it is 10 questions this week. Question 3 over to Matt K.
Okay.
The Heat.
The Heat, not Heat, right?
No,
because I don't think
Heat.
any of them were in Heat.
No, The Heat.
Octavia Spencer.
That is incorrect, my friends. Michael, you got a chance for a steal and to take a commanding 3-0 lead.
That's McCarthy.
That is McCarthy.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, I remember.
Michael knows his McCarthy. What can we say? It is 3-0, Michael. Question 4 is over to him. Snowpiercer.
Oh, that's a movie I love, and I've shown that in class. That's Spencer.
Yes, it is. I had forgot myself. I write these questions. I was like, oh my God, she's in Snowpiercer?
Yeah, you just go with Tilda Swinton. And
right.
Yeah.
It is 4-0, Michael. Question 5 is over to Matt. It's a slaughter going on here. Matt, the movie is The Life of David Gale.
Huh. All right, I'm just taking a guess here because it's a male lead character. I'm going to go with Jason Bateman.
That is incorrect.
Jesus.
The Life of David Gale. I don't know if you remember this one, Michael.
Wasn't that a Kevin Spacey vehicle?
It was, yeah.
I mean, I never saw it, but I'm going to go with Spencer.
His first incorrect one. That was Melissa McCarthy.
Wow.
Still 4-0, Michael. Question 6 is over to him. This is a masterpiece. Legally Blonde 2. Which of the three appears in Legally Blonde 2?
McCarthy?
Incorrect. Matt, you got a chance for a steal.
You'd think it was McCarthy. Listen, I got to go Bateman again. It's Bateman.
That is incorrect.
Dude.
We were looking for Octavia Spencer on that one. Still 4-0, Michael. Question 7 is over to Matt. Matt, your movie is The Sweetest Thing.
I have no idea. I can't even call this movie into my mind. The Sweetest Thing. I know I've seen it.
You got
one in 3 shot. All right. That title does nothing for me. So I'll say Octavia Spencer.
That is incorrect. You got a chance for a steal here, Michael. The Sweetest Thing.
Okay, I believe that The Sweetest Thing was a comedy, was sort of a female-centric comedy with Christina Applegate, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to have to say McCarthy.
Incorrect.
Oh!
I
was going to say Bateman
on that one.
Damn it.
For Bateman. Still 4-1, Michael. Question 8 is over to him. The Kingdom. The Kingdom.
I'm going to go with McCarthy.
Incorrect. This is a hard game. Matt, you got to guess?
This is a really hard game. The Kingdom. I mean, Jesus. Don't know what movie that is at all. This is a total shot in the dark. Maybe he was a knight or something, although I'm sure it has nothing to do with that. I'm going to go with Bateman.
You are correct. You got a Bateman there.
Was it a knight movie?
No, it was not. It was a war movie, if anything. Question 9 is over to Matt K. Matt, your movie is State of Play. State of Play.
Oh, that was one of those crappy Gerard Butler movies in the same tone as Olympus Has Fallen. So I think that was Octavia Spencer, actually.
Incorrect on both counts.
Oh. Sounded like I knew what I was talking about.
No, yeah, completely wrong. State of Play. A guess here, Michael?
I'm going to go with Bateman.
That is correct. It was Jason Bateman. 5-2. Michael has won this one. The last question of the game is over to him. Being John Malkovich. One of those three was in Being John Malkovich. Last question is to you, Michael.
Spencer?
That is correct. It was Octavia Spencer. Yes. 6-2. That was a tough match right there.
That was a really hard game.
Yeah, forget doing that one anymore. If it came down to a tie, we call it a jawbreaker. This question would have been to you, Michael. Jason Bateman, better in comedic roles or dramas?
I'm going to go with dramas.
Incorrect. It's comedies.
It's a trick question, actually.
I didn't realize it was a right or wrong answer.
Oh, yeah, right or wrong. And that was incorrect.
Have you seen The Gift?
Oh, he's great in The Gift.
Exactly.
The real jawbreaker was this. Age of Octavia Spencer, closest to. Matt, you got a guess on Octavia?
Let's see. I would say she's mid-50s. Let's say 50. Let's give her the speed limit, 55.
Lock Matt in on 55. Michael, you got a guess?
48.
Give that one to Michael. 50.
Okay.
He's on a roll.
She plays older often, so that's probably where I got that.
Well, she's been around for a long time, too.
That, too, yeah.
Going through her filmography and pulling some of these questions, I'm like, man, Octavia Spencer's been around a lot longer than I've known her,
Also, Matt, when guessing a woman's age, you always got to, round down.
That's true. You should, anyway.
Speaking of rounding down, we got to do that to this very podcast, Matt. It's a shame, as it was a fun one. But first and foremost, we got to thank our guest, Michael. About time we had you on Cinemajaw. This was a blast.
You guys, I had a blast. I'll do it anytime.
Yeah, we have to have you on again, for sure.
Matt, we also got to thank the sponsors.
Yep. Thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get great sponsors like them.
We should also thank Filmy and Phil. The guy's great, and he's always helping us out.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It's the best night of the week, and I will once again plug the music video that I animated for. It's World War Tour by the Chicago band Outronaut. Very easy to find. It's available on YouTube. There's also a couple of articles written about it that do feature me. So check that out.
Definitely check it out, Jawheads. Absolutely. If you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this very podcast.
And while you're there, please click subscribe. One extra button helps us out tremendously.
Until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt K.
And keep on jawing about the movies.